1859, you might have been presented with Neanderthal man as proof of our evolutionary ancestry, even though they'd been found 4 years earlier and had already been declared fully human by a professional anatomist. However, the release of Darwin's book fueled the search for fossils of imagined ape-like ancestors of man in the evolution-believing community. Irish geologist William King decided to re-examine the fossil skull of Neanderthal man and promptly decided that he was an ape-like creature. And many variations of this idea were propagated as science and fact for well over 150 years afterwards. Today, of course, evolutionists have admitted their true humanity, which is why they're designated as Homo, which means human, Neanderthals. And definitive confirmation comes from no less than Dr. Eric Trinkhaus, an evolution-believing paleoanthropologist, considered one of the world's foremost authorities on Neanderthal man, who's concluded, detailed comparisons of Neanderthal skeletal remains with those of modern humans have shown that there's nothing in Neanderthal anatomy that conclusively indicates locomotor, manipulative, intellectual, or linguistic abilities inferior to those of modern humans. However, moving on to 1861, you may have finally found yourself presented with some rock-solid proof in the form of a missing link between dinosaurs and birds, called Archaeopteryx. Good old Archae was used for decades to convince people that a true transitional fossil between lizards and birds had been found. But alas, in 1977, an admitted true bird was found which dates, according to evolutionist methods, at 60 million years older than Archaeopteryx, which means Archae couldn't be the transition to birds from lizards if birds already existed. By 1868, maybe the most cutting-edge proof presented to you might have been the supposed shocking similarity of animal and human embryos, and the discovery that humans recapitulated or relived their evolutionary ancestry while developing in the womb is absolutely ridiculous and would be laughed at by any educated person today. And Haeckel's embryo drawings have now been admitted to being completely fraudulent, forgeries made by this supposed great scientist's own hand, and the similarity argument has been shown false as well. And yet they were in textbooks up until my youngest daughter was in school just 15 years ago here in Canada. As evolution-believing embryologist Michael Richardson concluded, this is one of the worst cases of scientific fraud. It's shocking to find that somebody once thought was a great scientist was deliberately misleading. It makes me angry. What he, Haeckel, did was to take a human embryo and copy it. These are fakes. Now, by 1879, you may have felt scientists finally had the proof of evolution, as the American Journal of Science published an impressive diagram showing the supposed evolutionary development of horses, which found its way into many other publications and textbooks for years. Now, today, this proof of evolution has been abandoned because of the many severe challenges brought against it. For example, if the series were true, you'd expect to find the earliest fossils in the lowest rock strata. But you don't. In fact, bones of the supposed earliest horses have been found at or near the surface. Sometimes they're found right next to modern horse fossils. But instead of me listing all of the challenges here, I'll quote the evolutionist curator at the American Museum of Natural History, Dr. Niles Eldridge. I admit that an awful lot of that has gotten into the textbooks as though it were true. For instance, the most famous example still on exhibit downstairs in the American Museum is the exhibit on horse evolution prepared perhaps 50 years ago. That has been presented as literal truth in textbook after textbook. Now I think that's lamentable. Well, maybe by 1893, they'd show you the good stuff, the so-called scientific evidence of vestigial organs inside of us. These were supposed evidence of useless leftover parts inside us from our supposed evolutionary past. And by this time, evolution-believing scientists like German anatomist Robert Wiedersheim was claiming that our bodies contained over 86 of these useless organs, including the thymus, tonsils, adenoids, valves and veins, the parathyroid, and the pineal and pituitary glands. Of course, not only have all now been shown to be functional, but some have been shown to be critical for life itself. Today's doctors would consider that old list laughable. And over the years, the list of so-called vestigial organs has shrunk to a handful of highly questionable examples, even within the evolutionary community itself. Even the most commonly touted of all, the appendix, is now recognized as a highly specialized organ with a rich blood supply that manufactures several types of antibodies. It's not some useless relic. And it's not just the fact that these vestigial organ claims kept getting knocked off the list, it's the fact that the whole concept itself is a terrible proof of evolution to begin with.